Hi everybody. So I'm gonna be doing a story time on how, let's just say, how my Uber driver tried to rape me. So anyway, so I was at a hospital about an hour away from my house, and I didn't have any ride home, so I called an Uber or Lyft. It was Uber, I think. Yeah, it was Uber. So when the hospital nurse said, "Hey, this guy's out here to come pick you up. He's from Uber." So I walk out and I see this older gentleman. He's like maybe like 55, like my dad's age. So so I open his car, the back seat, because nobody gets in I don't get in the front seat of an Uber. So I get in the back seat and this guy's like, you can sit in the front. And I guess I was just like, okay, being a naive, white girl with blonde hair, not saying, oh, red flag, red flag. So I get in the front seat. Before we can pull off out of the hospital parking lot, he goes, hey, you want some drugs? And I'm not lying. And I'm like, drugs, like define drugs, because, there's different types. So he's like, I have weed, oil weed in a vape pen, and I'm not criticizing anybody that does weed for, medical use or something. It's just not for me. Makes me paranoid, makes me eat a lot. It's just not for me. So I'm like, just like nervously laughing, like, no, thank you. So we're driving. And he's like, I don't know, he's just being really weird, being very talkative, but not like that's a bad thing, but just talking about weird stuff. And all of a sudden he's like, you are very pretty. And I'm just like, oh, well, thank you. So we're about 45 minutes away from my house, okay? He's like, you're very pretty. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you. And I'm like, oh, let me just jump out of the car now. So he starts saying, yeah, you're pretty, blah, 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 And then all of a sudden he's like, you have nice knockers. Knockers? Your boobs? Knockers? Okay. So he says, you have nice knockers. And I'm like, thank you. And my phone's dead at this point. So I'm pretty much like screwed. So I'm like, oh shit, this guy is really weird. I'm scared, I'm about to just get out on the highway. So I smoke cigarettes, and that's a bad thing, but I'm working on it. So I smoked cigarettes, and I had one cigarette left, and he was like, hey, I'll stop at a gas station for you off the highway. And I was like, okay, no problem. So I go in, and the guy comes in with me, the Uber driver. So I thought that was a little weird. So I go up to the counter, and the guy's like, hi, like, what would you like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my pack of cigarettes that I smoke, and the guy's like, I'll pay for it. And I'm like, okay. No, it's okay. He's like, no, I'll pay for it. And I'm like, okay. So like he pays for it, and like he puts, okay, so we're side by side, okay, like this. So he like puts his arm, my shirt is, by the way, like really wrinkled, trash life. So he puts his arm like around me and like goes, he smacked my ass. He smacked my fucking ass. So I'm like, just not trying to get into like I don't know, like I don't like conflict, and I don't like to, I don't know. So I'm like, hey, like don't do that, sir. And he didn't really like say anything, just like looked at me like, oh, it's okay. So we get back in the car, and like people are gonna think like, oh, why didn't she get out? Why didn't she tell him to drop her off? Why didn't she tell somebody at the gas station? When you're in this type of situation, you don't think. So you're like, okay. So we get back in the car, and, like Uber drivers, they're like, you're not allowed to smoke in the car and stuff, and I don't smoke in the car. And he's like, hey, like, you can smoke in my car. And I'm like thinking, oh, well, yeah, duh, because you're smoking drugs right in front, well, not drugs. You're smoking weed right in front of me while driving for a Uber company. I was just really confused. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, So I'm smoking a cigarette, and I was supposed to go from the hospital. I put down like, go to the pharmacy and then my house. Well, I was just like, you know what? This guy is like really, really, really weird. So I was like, just take me home. And then, maybe like stop at my house first or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, I'll take you home and let you get your phone charged. You can charge your phone in my car. And I'm like, okay, like thinking to myself, well, right when I get in my fucking driveway, I'm running in the house and I'm just gonna close the door and probably hide underneath my bed. So we are on the highway about to take my exit, and he's like, oh, I live like 15, 20 minutes from here. I'm like, okay. I shouldn't have put my address down to tell him to pick me or to drop me off my address, but I did. I mean, it's an Uber company. It's Uber. You don't think, oh, well, he's going to stalk my entire life and show up at my house. So he drops me off, and he's waiting in the driveway, and I'm like, I'll be right back. So, like, I told my dad was here, and I told my dad, like, hey, like, this guy is, like, going to rape me and kill me and maybe, like, eat my body parts. I don't know. So he's like, well, don't go back outside. I'll handle it. So my dad goes outside, and he's like, hey, like, I'm going to run my daughter to the pharmacy. You don't have to worry about it. It's all good. And he's like, well, she told me to run her to the pharmacy, so I have to. And I don't know, like, what the Uber laws are or the policy things or something like that. So he's like, if she doesn't come back out, I'm going to call the police. I said, he's going to call the police if I don't come back outside to take me to the pharmacy. So I'm like, okay, I've had enough. This is weird. So I call the police, and the police come, and this guy is just, I don't know what's wrong, but this guy is like, hey, like, this is the policy. I have to take her. And the cop's like, if she doesn't want to go, like, you can't, like, you could go, like, kidnap her and put her in the car. Like, that's just not what's going to happen. So I told the cops, like, hey, like, he offered me, like, weed and stuff like that. And, like, I mean, I don't knock, like, medical marijuana. It's just not for me, but I doubt he had a medical marijuana card. So the cops, like, searched the car because he was on my property at that point, and they found weed, and they found coke, and weed and coke. That was it. So they found weed and coke, and they're like, okay, we're arresting this guy. And they towed the car, of course. And so I don't know why, but Uber, I guess, like, has your phone number or something. Like, if you, like, say, like, if they get lost or something, they can call your phone number. Well, this guy, I guess he got out of jail or whatever. So this guy, like, saw my name, looked me up on Facebook, saw my parents and stuff like that, and he texted me and was like, hey, like, if you want to have some fun, I'll give you some money. So I didn't reply, but I went to block him. Ooh, I'm choking on my own stupidity. So I went to block him, and he texted back before I could block him and say, hey, like, is your mom into stuff? Like, is your father into stuff? Like, we can have some fun. That's not okay. So I called Uber. I guess they fired him. I mean, they had to. Like, he had drugs in the car, like, while he was driving for Uber. But that was probably, like, that was scary. Like, knowing, like, he was flirting with me. Like, I don't remember all the stuff that he said, but he was flirting with me. He was, like, I mean, the gas station touchy-feely thing, like, that was weird. Just the stuff he was saying, like, I felt like he was going to kidnap me or something, or kill me. So, if you ever get in an Uber, just make sure, your phone is charged, you're in the back seat, and you can jump out the window. But But I hope you enjoy this video. It's short, but I'm not going to edit it or nothing. I'm just going to upload it. But if you like this and you want to see more, subscribe, like the video, comment, and I'll make more. Bye.